Greetings adventurers, and welcome back to Adventure Game Show Geek for our review of The Quest. This is technically part 2 of my Quest coverage, as I did a little preliminary look before the series began, using the very small amount of pre-release material Disney put out. And I mean very little. It didn't stop me talking for 9 minutes straight, but there was barely anything, and most of the stuff I found was fan-created. That, along with the fact it dropped all at once instead of once a week like I assumed in the aforementioned video, it kinda seems like it's being set up to fail, which kinda sucks as, spoiler, it's really good. So first things first, go watch it now, you won't regret it, plus this video is going to be spoiler filled so I can discuss everything, so watch it first. So, The Quest. It's a Disney Plus reboot of a 2014 ABC game show, 3/4 high fantasy adventure, 1/4 gameplay. As you know, 4 teenagers are sent to the world of Everrealm to fulfill a prophecy and defeat the dark sorceress Tavora, lest her evil engulf our world as well. The reasoning being, as it is in Everrealm, so it is in all realms. The Paladins, as they are dubbed, have to complete the Divine Crown by collecting the 4 Gems of Virtue and the King's Zone, which can only be summoned with 3 keys that also need to be collected. Only with their power can Tavora be defeated. There is adventure, there is treachery, there's romance, and then there is the strongest magic of all, friendship. I'm not joking. It's a wondrous concept, and it was given a strong execution. The plot and side plots are compelling, the characters are mostly endearing. It maybe dwells a little on the side of MacGuffin-y with all the object collecting the fates make them do. I mean, the Gems of Virtue are definitely MacGuffins, but you could definitely make a case that the keys to the King's Stone aren't, so I'll let it slide. The show didn't have an elimination format, which, while it probably would have made determining the winner easier, I'll talk about that later, it was the right choice, because the Paladins took a little time to come into their own, but when they did, they were brilliant. At the beginning, most of them would only speak when explicitly prompted to, but by the end of the series they were talking to and even challenging the characters freely. Imagine, if they'd been eliminated early on, we wouldn't have got to see any of that. Not to mention, they didn't start or sustain unnecessary drama, they were all team-orientated, all of them took the quest seriously, they supported each other, and generally were competent and awesome. Also, I envy their speaking skills. I tried to watch without rooting for anyone in particular, both because I wanted to remain objective, and also I know all of them were trying their best. But I'm only human, I couldn't help it. I was hoping Serene would win. But honestly, I thought any of them could do it. I'll move on to the challenges now. They're the heart of the game show, and overall, I found them a little lacking. Each episode only has 1 or 2 challenges, and if you compare it to, say, a Raven spin-off, which fits in around 4 challenges an episode, as well as the necessary story, in about half the time, yeah, it's not balanced. But then again, the quest had a lot more story to cover. Still, I feel like more could have been done to include the Paladins a bit more, just in general. Let's start with the challenges I liked. The episode 2 teen challenge with the Whispits was fun. The Whispits were very cool looking flying squid creatures that were brutally murdered multiple times in the episode. Although the gimmick of blinding them and throwing them down the well was nice, I couldn't help but feel bad for the funky little things. But the challenge also served as a subtle and clever way to get the Paladins and the audience familiar with the different parts of the castle. The episode 2 gem challenge, which was trying to bear the weight of an increasing number of boulders for the longest time, looked very hardcore, and I thought it was a rather original concept, although feel free to correct me in the comments if otherwise. Episode 3 began with a more classic fantasy game show challenge, the making of a magic potion. However, while most iterations of this involve solving riddles to identify ingredients, this one had the ingredients clearly spelled out. The challenge instead lay in adding them simultaneously. It was certainly unique, but also not as entertaining as bad poetry and riddles. But the following chemical reaction of a successful potion was very cool and a lovely use of practical effects. Then there was the final challenge for the Gem of Endurance in episode 4. And it's literally the sweep from Total Wipeout. It's a direct copy, but the designers gave it this incredibly cool looking design of vines and a beating heart. It looks stunning and definitely makes up for any lack of originality in the gameplay. But the the absurd juxtaposition between Total Wipeout and the world of Everrealm almost sells it by itself. I'm not sure if you could call the first challenge of episode 6 a challenge, more of a morality test to see which of the paladins would be the most willing to give their food to a stranger, and it also gave the narrative an opportunity to teach the heirs a lesson about how to rule properly. I thought it was very clever, even though it did take the place of a proper game. But also, obviously the paladin was going to give up the food. I saw some weird stuff in that basket, including raw parsnips. The paladins weren't exactly going to eat them as snacks. Then there were the series of 3 mini-challenges in the knockout format. The last 2 were average, one-way dodgeball and using a crossbow, but I liked the mace swinging for the first one. Except I would if they actually referred to it correctly as a flail instead of calling it a mace. But I guess that's semantics. Putting it aside, I thought the use of a flail was very unique. Longbows, crossbows, quarterstaffs, clubs, all dime a dozen in fantasy game shows. But not flails. I also enjoyed both challenges in the 7th episode. The maze challenge was entertaining, and while the rescue of Prince Cedric was confusing, it was fun and suspenseful. Now for the challenges that missed the mark. The first challenge, the race for the Gem of Bravery, felt very disjointed, with the rope pulling in the middle being very out of place. Everything else was good, but they definitely should have replaced the rope pulling with something more fear associated, like a climb, for example. Then there was the challenge for the Gem of Wisdom, which required the contestants to escape cages that the Gem Guardian had locked them in by unbraiding ropes. I wonder what would have happened if one of the contestants had refused to enter the cage, citing that the wiser thing to do would be not to enter the trap. I would have tried that, and if I were the adjudicator, I definitely would have considered that an instant win. However, as it would negate the gameplay, I doubt it would have actually been allowed. The challenge was unique, but I also wouldn't call it good either. It wasn't very wisdomy in nature, and it was also kinda dull. Episode 5 Challenge 1 was chaotic, to say the least. Each paladin was given 3 virtues, and they had to remember the symbols that corresponded to those virtues and use a map to find stones bearing those symbols in the woods. They found a ring in each location and put those rings in a treasure chest to reveal the first key to the Kingstone. I did not enjoy this challenge. We were only shown the symbols in a single shot at the beginning of the previous episode, and we didn't even get the chance to see all of them or see them clearly. From what I did see, I thought it was nice that they separated knowledge, intelligence and wisdom into 3 different traits, as they are different and that's rarely recognised, but other than that, I found the challenge confusing and badly set up. Then that brings us to the final challenge, the one that determined the one true hero, and the qualifying criteria was odd. Only 3 paladins could compete in it, the paladin with the most talisman, the paladin with the second highest amount of talisman, as voted for by the group, and someone voted out of all of the group. And basically it throws out most of the value of the challenges and the talisman, and turns it into a popularity contest between the contestants. For me, I would have gone a more straightforward route. David, Ava and Serene were the only paladins to redeem any of the important artifacts. David brought back the Gem of Bravery, the Gem of Strength and the Sword. Ava brought back the Gem of Wisdom and the Scepter, and Serene brought back the Gem of Resilience and the Torch. I placed their talismans above the more arbitrarily assigned ones from the teamwork challenges, and I would have had them be the ones to take on the final challenge. Yes, this means that Holden would no longer be the one true hero, and I admit he did deserve to win, and I was glad that he'd won. But I also think my way is more logical and more of an accurate assessment of ability than a group vote, which will always be slightly subjective. But regardless of how they were chosen, the 3 winning paladins are faced with first building a pole and knocking a compass from a tree, then balancing a tower of rocks, then climbing a tower to where the fire crystal lies. You could consider it bookends in a way. The challenges began with a disjointed 3-part race, and they end with it too. Honestly, it's kind of an anticlimax. I thought the Fate's ultimate challenge would be a bit more, I don't know, ultimate? Going back to the bookends though, I found it rather amusing that Holden made the first move in the first challenge and the final move in the final challenge. It's a lucky coincidence, but my favourite challenge? it's not even a challenge. I'm not even going to dignify it by calling it a challenge. It was just so clearly rigged. And I'm talking about the final battle against Tavora. And it's unimaginably, undeniably epic. Every paladin gets the chance to shine and show what they've learned. All the combat beats are on point. I love how they included parts of past challenges such as the potion making and finally doing the mirror challenge correctly. Well, I say doing it correctly. Given the fact the laser was somehow brighter than it was at night, despite it being broad daylight, and the fact none of the paladins wore the so important helmets of eye protection, I'd say they weren't exactly doing it at all. But it's not about that. It's about awesomely thwarting Tavora, and I don't care. It's honestly so cool, and it did an excellent job of portraying the paladins of having grown into heroes and really made the series feel complete. Let's look at the characters now. If you could say any character was the host, it would have to be Mila, Runeguard foot soldier turned oracle and leader of the paladins, and I love her. At several points I honestly thought they should just ditch their heirs and make Mila queen instead. She's brave and practical and rational, she's supportive concerning the paladins, and confident enough to challenge the royals when they're being unreasonable. And you can tell she takes such joy in her role as oracle. But they're also not afraid to show her vulnerability. Her wounds from the first battle against Tavora, her grief from being the only member of her battalion to survive the battle, her uncertainty about where she stands in the grand scheme of things after being raised from the lowest class of the Everrealm to the one favoured by the Fates. It makes her very grounded as a character, and I would give my life for her. Then there are the heirs. Their fight over who should be the next ruler was the main drama part of the show, and honestly, I have so many questions about them, most of which stem from a single conversation they had with the paladins. So, apparently, they weren't born. They were given to their father by the Fates. Why? And if they were given to the king by the Fates, then why do they think the Fates haven't been seen in thousands of years? Are they thousands of years old? And if the Fates can do something as concrete as give the king actual children, then why do so many people not believe in them? Yeah, no, I'm confused. But I love their sibling dynamic. Despite their fighting, it was clear that they were better together and cared for each other. Let's start with Princess Adeline. Let's be real, she's the only one of the heirs that could have actually ruled Sanctum alone. She has the confidence, the intelligence, and the manipulation tactics her siblings lack. She got all the information she needed out of Dravis just like that. And yes, she immediately made an incredible lapse of judgment in confronting him, but do you see her siblings taking the initiative like that? No. Also, and this is glossed over, she kills a man. I mean, it's the Dark Legion guard who was attacking her, but still, she's a literal killer queen. Then there's Cedric. He's the most aggressive, the most impulsive, the most condescending towards the paladins, and probably would have made a terrible king if not for being both told off by the Fates for not caring enough, and getting captured by the Dark Legion when he tried to take them on alone. His character arc was good, and he definitely grew the most out of the three. Then there is Emmett, who is revealed to be a magic user, and I find that fascinating in terms of world building potential. The people of Everrealm are apparently distrustful regarding magic. It's that intolerance that led to Tavora's rise. So, I wonder how Sanctum is going to react to having a magic user as their king. He'll probably face a lot of backlash, but he also has the ability to use his position to make things better for a lot of people. I hope this is something explored in a possible second series. This is also a good place to bring up Emmett and Mila's relationship. I think it's sweet, they balance each other out well. They're both massive nerds regarding the Fates and Everrealm's history. Their strengths complement each other, with Mila's sword skills and Emmett's magic. Mila is Emmett's voice of reason, and Emmett looks out for her when no one else thinks to. They're very sweet together. It's a shame about the bait and switch and the cliffhanger. I hope we get a series 2 just so we can see their relationship get resolved. Then there is King Silas of Aura. I didn't like him. It was clear they were going for a stern but just ruler, and they missed that by a lot. The way he would get stubborn or angry about something to the point of irrationality, and then immediately back down a scene or second later, just made him look pathetic and impulsive with poor emotional regulation. He really doesn't do much either, and when he does, it's normally counterproductive. I have no respect for him. Then there is Tavora. Tavora, our villain, is a textbook evil sorceress. She's ruthless, cruel and conniving. I like how she was portrayed, and she did come across as generally intimidating at some points. The mind control thing she did on people she captured was quite terrifying, and I would have loved to see that explored more. Maybe there could have been a subplot about her brainwashing one of the heirs and using them as her pawn secretly, instead of the whole Dravis business. But she was also a sympathetic character. She wasn't just evil for the sake of being evil. She wanted revenge for the discrimination she faces as a magic user as a child, and the chance to rebuild the world to be safer for her and those like her. I have a lot more sympathy for her than Dravis. Speaking of Dravis, I had a sneaking suspicion he would be evil from episode 1. This was part instinct, and part the fact I knew the magic-using advisor had been evil in the original series, and I had a feeling they'd try something like that again. Call me genre savvy, but honestly, I think something went wrong in his execution. His main reason for betraying them was feeling overlooked in favour of Mila, which is illogical. For one, Mila holds a very different role, and they don't overlap. Mila delivers the Fate's will and looks after Paladins and the quest. She doesn't use magic. Dravis is the magic user, and he definitely has Silas's trust more than Mila does. Also, the heirs are literally his boss. They make the decisions, not him, and he's not supposed to get huffy when they decide against his advice. If you could even call it advice. And I don't blame the Fates for not making him Oracle, since he was clearly obsessed with the Deep from the beginning. Sometimes I wonder why he wasn't with Tavora from day one. He was just being entitled to power he didn't have, didn't need, and didn't deserve. He certainly didn't deserve the weird rushed redemption arc they gave him. I would have gone about it slightly differently. I would have played up the insecurity and entitlement and made all of it an excuse for him to seek out the power of the Deep. And when he finally joins Tavora, instead of her brainwashing him, have her let him into the Deep and have it overwhelm him. Have him face off against the heirs literally mad with power, let him give an unhinged villain speech, smouldering with the unstable magic. And when he finally tries to harness it and blast the heirs, let him lose control and have the magic of the Deep engulf him and send him to the place we saw at the ending. This would have been the perfect comeuppance for him. I know this means he wouldn't be able to take the Divine Crown from Tavora at the climax, but you know who else has magic and could take it instead? Emmett. After Mila takes out Silas, just have Emmett steal the crown, maybe have Cedric throw it to the one true hero, and Adeline be the one to pull them out the way when Tavora tries to blast them. It would really highlight the sibling teamwork thing they have going on. I mean, how they did it in the show was still very good, but that's just how I would have done it. And now I'm just going to non-stop praise the tech departments of the show. The costumes are all so beautiful and so detailed, and the characters all have multiple costumes as well. Seriously, if you're interested in costume design, it's worth watching just for them. Mila's armour and Adeline's dresses in particular are just stunning. The Fates look positively ethereal. Not to mention each paladin's outfit is just slightly different as well, it's all so good. And the practical effects and prosthetics look so cool. Most of the game shows, hell most shows I watch tend to be very CGI heavy, and while the quest did use quite a bit of CGI, its utilisation of the practical effects in front of the contestants was both refreshing and clever. It would have been so easy for them to have the contestants try to react to a CGI monster, but instead they pulled off these beautiful and frightening creatures without it. The witch in the first episode, she looks so cool, and the way they had the gem in her eye, it was so brilliant. Not to mention the fight scene choreography. The battle at the beginning was brilliant, the fight in episode 7 was brilliant, even the battle against Tavora, which wasn't exactly a fight, it's so smooth it must have been choreographed, and choreographed well. The only real weakness in the technical stuff is the music. Not the background music, they use that well to apply appropriate amounts of tension. It's the theme music playing during the opening credits I have the problem with. I don't know if this is just me, but it feels way out of balance. The sound effects are way louder than the melody. The whooshing and the battle ambience pretty much completely drown it out. And it's a real shame, as you do hear the theme a couple of times during the challenges, and it does sound quite cool. Honestly, I love the quest. It's pure wish fulfillment, the stuff of magic. Yes, some of it might be cheesy, but you want it to be real, because Everrealm is genuinely comforting. It's a place where common foot soldiers can become oracles, where goddess equivalents take the time to compliment your hair, where teamwork is prioritised above all else. The Quest is the kind of show I really want to be on, be part of. Does it deserve a second series? It better. You can't leave us on a cliffhanger like that. I want to know the rest of the story. I have so many more questions, plus there are so many more kingdoms to explore. What happened to Dravis? Will Mila and Emmett get together? Who are the Ferals? Not to mention, it's pretty much the only game show that is aimed specifically at my age group, and I don't want to lose that. All in all, it's a decent game show with some unique ideas, and a truly very good regular show, and I really hope I get to cover it for a series too. Until then, I'll just be here, wittering on about game shows, now and forever. And remember, it's only a game, isn't it?